generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we are talking about the latest Alien movie that's come out. So there's a ton of the movies that are out, right? But really, you only have to see the original to see this movie. So that's kind of cool, right? This takes place in between the first and the original second Alien movie known as Aliens. And so if you've seen the first one, you're good to go. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna talk about the movie, a non-spoiler section first, and then we will give the movie a rating, and then move into the spoilers and talk about what the movie was about. So I'll kick it off. I thought it was a good movie. I have this thing where I go to see some of these alien movies and expecting a lot, and I feel like a lot of them never really got to the point where I was like super amazed and really wanting to watch the other movies. Um,
Have you seen them all?
I've seen, I think I've seen all but one of them, and the one that I haven't seen, I've heard isn't like super into this alien part of it. It's like a super prequel, if that makes sense. It
Mhm.
was called Prometheus, I think.
Oh, yep.
I have not seen that one, but all the other ones, I think I've seen the other ones. But I don't know. I don't remember enough to recall if I've seen all of them. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I don't even
So
know how many there are. I've only seen the original.
yeah, I mean, I can definitely, I'm confident in saying I've seen Aliens. I've seen both of the AVP movies, Covenant, and I feel like there's another one that came out recently, but obviously this one too. So. This was probably one of the first Alien movies I've seen where I was like pretty well engaged the entire time. I thought they did a really good job with a lot of um, story elements that kept us pulled in, made us feel like we were there. So, for instance, and this is not a spoiler because we know it from the previews. The movie is essentially about, these group of people or this group of people that are on a mining planet and they know of a basically an abandoned ship and there's the life preserve ice boxes on them. I don't remember the technical name, but basically the things that allow you to travel long distances and, not lose a whole bunch of years on your life. And what they want to do is they want to go and recover those so they can sell them to have, a lot of money potentially. Or there's also this planet they're trying to get to where there's a lot of sun. They could use it there as well. So there's like dual alternatives, whatever they want to do with it.
I don't
Um,
remember anybody talking about selling it. I thought they just wanted it so they could travel without travel vouchers.
I could have sworn one of them said like it's worth millions or whatever. I could be wrong. I thought I heard them say something like that, like as an extra way to get the girl to want to do it, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
I
Um,
I don't know.
I know the main goal is that they're trying to get to this planet where from what I gather, sounds a lot like Earth, and then they could, have a lot of sun because where they're from, there's absolutely zero sun. Um, but what I was trying to get at, uh, eventually we know that they're going to get off the planet because they have to go to the space station to run into the alien, right? And so one of the things I thought was really cool was that when they were like lifting off and, leaving the planet, I feel like they put a lot of detail into those scenes and like with the camera shaking and the noises of the ship when as it's leaving orbit. I thought that was a really, really good sequence that kept us in there. And another thing I thought was really cool, it's subtle, but the original Alien movie was made, I think, back in the 80s or 70s, one of the two. I think it was late 80s. And back then, you didn't have all this CGI to make your ships do a bunch of crazy things.
79.
79, dang it. Okay, late 70s. Um, they didn't have a whole lot of, crazy CGI that they could do. I mean, they had like the models that they could do, and they did like close-up shots to, make them appear more real. And a lot of the ship movement in this movie is very, very stiff, like an old movie would appear. So I kind of appreciated that, where, it wasn't something crazy. It really felt like it was potentially a movie made after the first one. Now, granted, we have nicer cameras nowadays, we have some better special effects, but I feel like it felt like it was right in there with the ones from back when. So, uh, what did you think?
I really enjoyed it. It kept my interest. It was exciting. It gave you goosebumps. It it made you really wonder, like, how are they going to escape whatever it is that, was happening at the time? Because kind of like the original Alien, it's always one disaster after another of various sorts. Um, there's a fair amount of drama in the group, but not so much that that's the primary focus. So just to add like another layer to the story, so it's not just, oh, we gotta escape, it's dealing with the team as well. The two things that I wasn't a super fan of, and they're what's making me drop a point, even though there's good reason for them to be in there. Okay, so one is there's a lot of spinning shots, and I get that that's kind of what makes you feel like you're in space, but it made me have to look away repeatedly. It wasn't like scattered throughout the film. It was really kind of just like one, I don't know, 3 minute scene or something where we kept doing it over and over and over. So at least it wasn't all throughout the film because that would have been really bad for me and my motion sickness. But it was just, I,
Just
I
to the
felt
point
like
where I locked eyes with Sarah because I knew it was not going to be so great for her during those sequences.
they could have done it once and then called it good, and they kept doing it over and over and over in the same scene. So it seemed like overkill to me. The second thing that I was going to say, and this is possibly just because we saw it in IMAX, and so maybe my beef is more with the IMAX than the actual film, but there was some times where it was so loud, and I felt like it was really unnecessary. It wasn't so loud that the characters were startled by it being loud. Like, like an explosion where the characters might be like, ah, and covering their ears and stuff. It wasn't like that. It was just loud for the sake of being loud. Um,
I think it added more to the realism myself. Although, I mean, there's probably some of those scientist people perking up going, is there sound in space? But um I liked it. That's one of the reasons why I like going to the IMAX is just because it's loud for no reason.
but if it's why the no reason part though? If it's really that loud to be realistic, wouldn't the characters be reacting to it too?
Well, they can't hear all the explosions, you know, outside of the ship, but at the same time, I think they're more worried about getting away from the alien as opposed to, I can't hear for 2 seconds.
Fair point. I don't know. Those two things were I thought were kind of bothersome. But they're kind of more nitpicky, I guess. The average consumer, I don't think would notice the spitting things being a problem. It's really kind of more of a personal problem, but doesn't mean I have to like it. Um, and I don't know, the sounds sometimes I like it when it's loud. I like going to the IMAX and having it be loud, but it just seemed like it was loud at the wrong parts or maybe too loud. Just eh.
Too loud too often.
It was just a little bothersome. It was just kind of annoying.
Well, actually, I want to talk about something. Never mind. I'll wait till we're in the spoiler section. Um, because there is something in contrast to the super loud. But um, before we get into our ratings, let's talk about the actors and actresses here for a minute.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, arguably, I mean, I really liked the lead actress. I thought she did a great job. But I think the my favorite character of all of this was Andy. And I before we saw the movie, I did not know this, but he's one of the like robot people. And so to play that character, as an actor, I feel like he was 100% consistent with it. I feel like there was not one moment where I believed he's a human. Like he definitely had like the little tweaks and stuff that that the robot would do. And so I think he did a really, really good job. And that's David Johnson. Um Also, I mentioned the lead actress. Her character's name is Rain. Her name's Kaylee Spaney.
I think so.
She did a great job too. So, um, yeah, don't want to get too political.
I would agree. I think they both did a great job. Andy kind of almost reminded me of the character from Get Out, the one that had already been mind wiped, and he
Mm,
was like kind of robotic in he wasn't a robot, but he was kind of robotic in his responses and um
hypnotized.
yeah, yes, thank you. That's a good way to put it. I could see kind of like a similarity in just like their mannerisms and how they processed information and stuff like that.
Yeah. One more thing I want to mention before we get into ratings is that there were some. We're not going to talk about it 'cause it's spoilers, but we will talk about it in a minute. There were definitely things that were planted along the way that had good payoff later on that made things understandable as to why certain things were happening. And so I appreciate that those things paid off well. And we're gonna get to that here in a minute. So, are you ready to roll into ratings?
Yeah, let's do it. You go
Awesome.
first.
I was gonna say you go first because I've been going first the past couple movies.
Oh, I thought it's been me. Okay, well, I'll go first. I'm at a 9. I really enjoyed this film. I don't think a 10 is necessarily a perfect film, but there were some things that bothered me between those spinning shots and then the noise level for certain things. And there was a couple other that were more like spoiler type things that I can't really mention right now. But I'm at a 9 for this one. It was pretty good.
Which is, I mean, I'm not saying I'm surprised because I thought you were not gonna like the movie, but if I'm correct, when we watched the first movie together so that we could be ready for this one, like, wasn't that your first Alien movie?
Yes.
Because coming out of that movie, I know you were kind of like, it was okay, kind of a movie.
I
Uh,
was pretty bored.
so going into this one, I mean, arguably it was kind of a slow burn for the first half of the movie, which is how I feel the first movie was, but then they kind of ramped it up there towards the end. So I was really wondering kind of where you were at.
Yeah, I didn't feel like this movie was nearly as slow as the original. If Sigourney Weaver wasn't in the original, I think I would have not liked that film even more just because to be quite honest, it was kind of boring. The actual creature wasn't in it nearly as much as I was expecting in the original movie, not this one. And I feel like with this movie, Romulus, they kicked everything up way more. And the scary factor was a lot higher.
I would say it was higher, but at the same time, like whenever people, and I think even your mom said this before the movie, is that there's been people saying this is one of the scariest movies they've seen in a long time in reviews, and I'm thinking like you have to understand what type of horror you're getting yourself into. Like, this is definitely a sci-fi horror. So like if you're expecting, I mean it had jump scares, but it's not the kind of horror where I'm kind of like on the edge of my seat. I'm more like there's an alien there. How are we gonna, get out of here? As opposed to, you know, feeling scared. I don't know how to describe it super well, I guess.
I would disagree because it's not just there's an alien, it's creepy. It's there's an alien, it's going to kill me. How do I get away?
Yeah. Maybe it's just because I've
Or it's
seen
gonna jam its thing down my throat, and that's disturbing too. Like that's
may-
creepy.
maybe it's more or less because I've seen a lot of the other movies and I feel like the horror element was very similar to some of the other ones. I mean, the
Does it
story
feel
was
stale to
different,
you?
maybe a little bit. Um, I don't know. I don't. If I was in real life, I would see these aliens as terrifying, but I don't see them, like I see some other horror movies. Like it's not the Babadook to me, or it's not, um, the Lady on the Wall from Hereditary. I mean, those are all. It's a different type of horror, but
I
I'm go
I like this type of horror better, I would say. And one thing, I'm sorry to keep preventing you from getting to your rating, but one thing that I'm going to add too that I thought was a really nice touch was the teeth on the alien creature. They were nasty. Like it was
I got pearly
not,
whites.
not it was, but they were like seeping with like acid and stuff or whatever it was. Like it was just it it was terrifying. The teeth were nasty. Like if I keep saying nasty, it's not like they were like moldy and gross, like you never brushed. They actually did look kind of clean, but they're just the amount of shininess of whatever goo was on them and the amount of the teeth and the sharpness of them, like it just I don't know. I felt like they looked scary.
There's great toothpaste in space, supposedly.
He's the
Um,
perfect organism.
it is. Perfect organism has the perfect teeth. Um, I'm gonna give the movie an 8. And I still think that's a really good score considering when I said in the very beginning, usually when I see an alien movie, I'm usually kind of walking away a little disappointed because I wanted more than what I got. And I think this movie was pretty solid. I feel like it took what was great about the first movie and really built on it. And so I think an 8 is a solid alien movie for me. So definitely above average, um, but I'm right at an 8. So, all right. So we're gonna transition. Oh,
What put you not at like a 9 or 10? You just wished it was more scary or
well, I mean, because we're not quite in spoilers, but there's parts of the movie where I are okay.
you want to jump to spoilers?
I'm just gonna say everybody knows that we're kind of heading into the spoiler section. So if you're still here, click away. But we're not gonna go necessarily in chronological order of the film just because we're gonna talk about this. So I'm hoping for more like shootout action with these aliens. Um, We get one scene of that, and I was hoping for a bit more, or, watching the aliens stalk them a bit more. Um, we got one or two scenes where we got to see them, doing some things where they're trying to like get their group together, and then we kind of saw the creature in the background slip into a vent or something. But I want a bit more of that. And the first half of the movie, I feel like it's really two halves. Like I think the first half is them getting there and doing what they're supposed to for their mission. And then the second half is all about the alien. And I wish there was more of the alien involved so that we spend more time with the horror element as opposed to, just seeing essentially a sci-fi movie for the first half of just seeing them do their mission, if that makes any sense.
Sounds exactly like the original.
It does, but that's what I'm saying is like this one did it better, in my opinion, a little bit better than the original. But even with the original, I wish they got to the aliens a lot faster and we got to, be more involved with the aliens in during more time of the film. So that
So
that's
I have a question now that you're talking about the shootout and stuff. So didn't the boyfriend type character, I know it wasn't her boyfriend, but didn't he say that like the gun only had so much ammo and then it appeared that she ran out of ammo and then Andy used it later in the elevator shaft, like,
So
or is it just that it had to recharge?
I'm gonna say yes, yes, and no. So they did bring that up that it's got a limited cartridge. It had 450 rounds, and you could tell by the light, how much she had left. And she stopped shooting during that shootout sequence when Andy had said 20% batter or 20% left, and then she stopped. And so they did have a good handful of rounds still left. But I'm kind of with you though, where it seemed like they were using that gun quite a bit during the last 20%.
He said 20%, then they turned off the gravity and she used it to get herself away from the goo, didn't she?
Yep, the acid.
Okay, so then they got to the elevator shaft and she used it again to get away from the edge of the door. So I figured that was like, okay, we're done. Like she's used it twice since it was like almost dead. And then Andy was still able to use it after that. And a lot too. Like not just one or two bullets, but like enough to kill another alien.
Yeah, I mean, so, I mean, if we're gonna think about it on a numeric scale, 10% of 450 is 45, so 20% left would be about 90 bullets. I feel like she maybe used like 5 to 10 in each of those sequences that she fired the gun. So I feel like that leaves quite a bit left for him to use. But like I said, I do agree that it kind of felt like they were overusing the 20%, but I don't know. Um, yeah, let's get back to the sequence of the movie. So one
Reel
of
it
the things
back now.
one of the things I was talking about in the non-spoiler section is that, Sarah had brought up that this movie was really loud. This movie started like pin drop quiet. I could still hear people coughing around me when they were choking on their popcorn and stuff, while the beginning started. And it's cool because it's very similar to the opening of, I think, the original, where it's like super quiet. We see an empty ship, and eventually the computer turns on with like the emergency code for, people to come check it out. Um, and then it kind of rolls into these people trying to get like this. I'm sorry, it looked like a big alien turd out in space, like it's a big rock. And what's inside of it was an alien. And they bring it onto their ship and they roll it away so they can probably go do some experimenting on it. And then it cuts to our main group in the movie. Um, which is, Rain and Andy. They're together quite a bit. They're not boyfriend and girlfriend. So she's human, he's robot, and he is essentially
She keeps calling him her brother.
right. And it's because her dad, before her dad died, basically programmed Andy to be her brother and take care of her while, he's passed away. Her mom has passed away as well, from what we understand. And so it's
I
just the
think
two of
they,
them.
yeah, she said they both passed away in a mining accident.
Right. Well, see, I didn't know if she was just saying that just to get the lady to, hurry up with the process. So let's talk about that. So Rain has served enough hours on this mining planet to leave. I guess you had to work 12,000 hours and then you could, leave the planet. And so she goes and she's checking in with the lady. I did actually see her WY officer. She's on IMDb. Um, so she's checking with her, and then she's informed that they upped the 12,000 hours to 24,000 hours. So she was denied her grant to leave because she wants to go to a planet elsewhere that has a sun. She's tired of having a dark planet. She eventually gets a little phone call or ring ring. You're looking weird. What? There's
Sorry, I was trying to calculate out what this actually means, these 12,000 hours. So if you were to work 40 hours a week, that's 300 days, or 60 weeks if you're only doing 5 days. Oh, why did I divide by five again?
Math is hard.
See, I was wondering, I'm like, this is only 60 weeks, but no, yeah, so I guess it'd be 300 weeks.
So roughly a little less than 6 years.
Yes, which checks out with what she said. I guess I was fact checking what she said. I didn't realize that she said it that way.
So we are nitpicking this movie. It better be right. No.
I was trying to get a realistic idea of what is 12,000 hours. And what I didn't under what didn't click to me until just now is that when she said it was changing from 12,000 to 24,000, that was like another 5 or 6 years. Well, that means 12,000 is about 5 or 6 years. So it checks out.
Yeah, nice. She gets a little ring from her friends, and that I think that was Tyler.
I
Um,
believe so.
Basically saying, hey, if you come, oh, come, it was like an invitation to come over to where they're residing. And so she heads over there, and this is where their mission is discussed. They're trying to uh, persuade Rain to go with them on this mission where they're going to recover these ice boxes so that
Creo
they
chambers.
Rio Chambers, thank you. All the Alien fans are gonna crucify me after that. Um, so they're going to find, you said, what, say it again?
Creo chambers. Think of like cryotherapy where you go in an ice box.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cryo Chambers. So they want to go to this abandoned facility, recover these chambers, and then use them so that they can go to a planet that is a lot nicer than where they're at. And they need that because it's so far away. They don't want to, be on a ship. I think it was 9 years
I
they
think
said it
so.
would take. So Rain is a little hesitant at first. I think she kind of doesn't want to do it, and then, you know, persuasion. They eventually get her to do it. And then they take off. They leave the planet. And like I was saying, it's a really, really cool sequence here where I felt like we really got to feel like we were part of that group as they were taken off. Um, I do want to emphasize here too is that we are also learning about Jorn's character, which is I think it's Tyler's brother or cousin, because he came out. So Jorn has this issue with the robot people. Um, Sarah, maybe you can look up that name too. That way I quit calling it some generic name. But he has a problem with them, and we don't quite know yet at this point, but later on in the movie, we do find out that the reason why he has a problem with them is his mom. There is a mining facility issue where potentially people could die, and one of these robot characters push the button so that the door would shut and, stop whatever was happening inside there from killing everybody. It only killed three people, which included his mom.
Bjorn.
Huh?
Bjorn. Like
Bjorn?
B Yorn, but the B is really fast. Bjorn.
Oh, Bjorn. Okay. My bad. But did you find out what the robot people are called?
Aren't they synthetics?
Synthetics?
I thought so.
Android? All right, we'll call them synthetics for now. So yeah, his mom was left behind and she was killed. So
Synthetics or artificial persons.
uh, Bjorn's, that's why he's upset about them. So throughout
Not,
the,
it's not DeJorn.
I said Bjorn. I didn't say DiGiorno.
Get rid of the J. It's like a Y. Bjorn.
Bjorn. Bjorn. Okay. Enough making fun of me. But throughout the movie, he has this issue with our artificial people, artificial persons, um, which is interesting. And this is what I was talking about, like little things that are planted throughout the movie that have a good payoff later. Um, well, I'll talk about that when we get there. But this definitely has a little seed planted for us. So they're taking off. They head towards the ship. They do dock, and only a couple of them leave. Um, I think it's Tyler, Bjorn, as Sarah is probably laughing at me off camera right now, and uh, Andy. And the reason why they want Andy there is because Andy can stick his finger in a socket and override doors. I think that's kind of weird, but it works because, he's an artificial people, so he can talk to computers with his finger.
What seemed weird to me was he was almost scared to do it. Like it was gonna zap him or something, but like
Well,
he's
maybe
literally programmed to do it.
sometimes it's scary their first time. It can be. So they're going throughout the ship. They're eventually making their way through. They do find the cryo chambers pretty quickly, but there's a problem. The chambers only have enough time for about 3 years. So they have to try to find some fuel for these chambers elsewhere in the facility. That way they can make the whole trek, the whole 9 years, to wherever they're wanting to go. And so they have to go deeper into the ship. So they start doing that, and they eventually get to the part in the trailer where there's like water all over the ground, and they have to trek through, I don't know, ankle high deep water. And in there are tanks that have the fuel for the cryo tanks. And they're trying to pull them out. But what's also in this room are the face huggers. They're like in these little, I don't know what you call them, like air sealed looking chambers. Don't know what the name is, but that's kind of what they look like. And what is it? They turned up the heat in the room, and that's kind of like what melted
Was
it.
something to do of when they took the Creo pod out. Number one, it froze one of their fingers or a couple of their fingers because something was faulty with what it was doing in there. Like I think it was what was keeping the room cold. And once they disconnected it, the temperature in the room started to go up a lot. Um, so that caused like a chain reaction of these things like unthawing, which it was kind of weird. Nobody talked about it being cold in there, but these creatures started to,
Unthawing,
huh?
unthawing. What's that mean?
They started to thaw.
Yeah, rubbing off on you. She, off the record, she makes fun of me because sometimes I say that.
I didn't even notice I said it. I probably said it because you got me saying it.
Yep.
Okay, but anyway, the creatures start thawing out. It was kind of weird because nobody mentioned it being cold, but it was cold enough that those creatures were like frozen, and so now they're thawing out and they're hungry.
They are hungry.
Hungry to give birth
They're
in these
hungry for
people's
that mouth
mouths.
hole. Always one of the weird things from the alien movies, in my opinion. But uh yeah, they're stuck in there because the door, so like the room, there's some sort of like security thing that goes off and the door shuts and they can't get out. And so I think it's Rain runs in to uh the facility trying to go and help them open up that door. So is it just Rain? Because the other girl's sleeping.
Rain and Navarro go.
Oh yeah, yeah, Navarro.
Kay stays behind on the ship, but Rain sees that there's one of the synthetics on the ship. He's missing his legs. His name's Rook. He looks just like Ash from the original. I found out in my very brief research they actually like digitally used the old actor's face for this synthetic because although he's not the same character, it's essentially a clone of him, right? They're synthetic, so it's not really a clone because they're not biologically people, but they're the same scientific doctor as what the old character was. But they're able to get a certain chip from him to put into Andy so that he can have clearance to open the door. What I don't understand is why they didn't just stick Rook's finger in the hole to open the door. Seems like that would have been a lot easier. Um,
I thought I thought he did, but he didn't have the correct clearance or something like that.
they tried Andy's and he didn't have the clearance. That's why they had to get the chip from Rook. But why didn't they just stick Rook's finger in the hole?
Oh, I thought Rook was. Oh, I don't know. Maybe they want to haul half a body around.
Maybe he would have had to just still tell it to do something, like just sticking the finger in there wouldn't do it, be enough. Maybe he still had to have the mental capacity to tell it to open, and they didn't trust this other synthetic. I don't know. That's what I'm gonna tell myself to get past it. But that was kind of a weird thing. I'm like, well, why wouldn't you just stick his finger in there? Because what ends up happening is that they get the chip and they put it in Andy, but he has to essentially do a reboot. So he's in there stuck, frozen, not really able to do anything because he's rebooting his system. And this is when the face huggers come out, and we have our first interaction of it's almost like he's hitting him with a baseball bat or something because he
A
he didn't
stun
have a gun,
baton.
did he? Oh yeah, that's right. Stun baton. Yep.
And we get one person that the face hugger is successful with. That is Navarro. Um,
Which is too bad because I liked her. She looked cool.
yeah, so once they get out of this process, the out of the room with the fuel, they get back to the area where Rook is, and the face hugger latches on to Navarro, and our main characters don't know what the heck is going on, and so they plug Rook in to the computer so that Rook can start talking to them, and maybe he knows what this thing is and how to get it off of her face. And basically, he says, you can't do anything, you just got to run. And they don't like that idea, right? They don't want to leave their friend behind. So, trying to remember.
I think it's like Bjorn's girlfriend or something like that because he's super protective over her compared to everybody else. But they get the idea of if we freeze the tail,
Oh
it'll
yeah.
let go. So they try to do that and it lets go so that it's not holding onto her neck anymore. But that's when Rook says it's too late, it already impregnated her basically. So Bjorn takes Navarro to the ship and Andy, who's wanting to protect everybody and protect the mission and stuff, he wants to prevent her from getting on the ship because he knows what's going to happen. He knows that she's going to kill everybody because of the creature, but nobody else believes him. So Bjorn and Navarro undock the ship, leaving behind Rain, Tyler, and Andy. So then we got chaos going on the ship while Rain, Tyler, and Andy are kind of stuck trying to figure out some other way out of there.
Yeah, which is interesting to me because I thought this was quite a quick process because the reason why things are going haywire on the ship is because the alien is already trying to break out of her chest. Like it was a quick turnaround. Because I thought in like the first movie, the dude was like sleeping for a while, and then he got up and he was even having a meal with them, and then it happened. So, I mean, I don't know the time turnaround on these things, but it just seemed kind of quick.
I think the whole process was significantly faster this time around. Even just the implementation of the egg or whatever it was, like that even the face hugger was on the dude a lot longer in the original than in this one. He was on her for what, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
I feel
Uh,
like with the other one he was on him for like 2 days.
so when they're on the ship and Navarro's going crazy with the chest stuff, she does like kick something and it makes the ship go haywire, like it's um going off in a random direction. and eventually it does like pinball its way back into the main ship. So our group is split, but they're both still on the ship. Um, Clearly, Navarro dies because of the alien that burst out of her chest. So that leaves Kay. She's pregnant with um, our favorite dude's name, right?
No.
Bjorn.
Oh, that's what it was. That's her brother, I think. Either that or Tyler is her brother.
Tyler is her brother, and I'm pretty. Wait.
'Cause Rain asks who the dad is, and she says she doesn't know.
Oh, I thought she was saying like she doesn't want to tell her because she knows the dude's a jerk. Like she doesn't want to admit. But I guess these whole family ties just
I,
don't make sense. It's some weird Targaryen stuff going on here.
I'm not entirely sure.
All right. Well, we're just gonna disregard that. She's pregnant. We don't know who the father is. But Kay eventually is able to let's try to remember. So the group is split. Our group of three. So when Andy rebooted, he also kind of like took on the mentality of Rook as far as his main objective, because before they swap the things out, his primary thing he does in life is protect Rain. Well, now it's to complete the company's mission at all costs. So he's kind of a different person now. Like all his speech was a little bit different. His mannerisms are a little different. So we got that going for us. Which,
I think probably the best way to describe it is at one point he says to her, "You're not going to see me as a child anymore." And that's kind of what it is he went from being a bit childish, not really knowing a whole lot and constantly looking at her for direction to now he's large and in charge and he's the boss. You're going to listen to me and do what I say or else.
right. Which this is leading to one of those moments I mentioned had like a nice seed planted and then pay off later on. So they're trying to, find their ship. They're trying to go to the hangar where their ship crashed into, and there's this big open area with a bunch of face huggers in it. And Rain, she kind of has a lot of good ideas. She says, if these things that she was told that they are attracted to sound and their body heat. She says, well, what if we turn the temperature up in this place and then they can't, pick up our heat signatures? Great. So they turn the heat up and they start walking through. Of course, it doesn't go as planned because Kay calls Tyler because Kay notices an alien on the ship. And so she's like, yo, there's something going on here. So he's trying to talk to her. That's not going to work out, right? You're supposed to be quiet. So this causes them to dart, through this area and avoid. We get like a little action sequence here with the face huggers. Um, but eventually, we do get to the point where our trio meets up on the other side of the door of Kay because I think Kay and Bjorn, he's with her. He's still alive at this point. He uses the stun baton to try to shock the alien, but eventually, because they bleed acid, they bled all over him and he died. And
Well,
so,
don't forget that it stabbed him in the eye first.
oh yeah, that was pretty cool.
Gross.
Uh,
You saw his fingers literally disintegrate off his body.
there's like a
Yes.
minor, was it an explosion that blew Kay off the ship? Because she like fell.
I think it was she was panicking to get the door unlocked. She finally got the door unlocked, and then she kind of like in a panic, just trying to get away from the creature, fell off the edge where the ship was. So she's in a docking bay and essentially fell over a railing, or maybe the railing was missing, something like that.
Yeah, so to be clear, so she opened the door of the ship to get out, and now there's a door at the hangar that is splitting her from our trio group. And
Yep.
she's like begging them to open the door, and Andy won't do it. And because he knows, there's that alien back there. And if we
And
open,
Andy has to do it because his finger that opens the door.
right. And he refuses. And so eventually the alien, um, takes away Kay. And so Rain is like, "What on earth are you doing? You know what you're supposed to do." But remember, the prime objective has changed, so it no longer has to care about her. But what I thought was very interesting is when we learn about Bjorn's mom, you know, did what's best for the group. Here we saw it again, right? I thought that was a really cool payoff on that, where we're seeing this instance where it's like, hey, Rain wants everybody to be saved, but based on Andy's intelligence, it's like, well, we have to sacrifice the one for us three, and that's gonna be okay, even though Rain doesn't want it. So I really liked that payoff. Um, so. Our group thinks that Kay, is dead. She's gone away. And so now they want to try to do what they can to survive and get out of there. Um, which involves having, well, I mean, Andy is the one in charge, and Andy wants to complete the mission from Rook. So he
I
guides
think
them to a
I think they
room.
come to an agreement of if they go and get the alien substance, then Rook will allow the ship to let them leave or something like that. Or he'll change the piloting system to not run into the asteroid belt, something along those lines. Because all this whole time, this space station is like on its way to hit an asteroid belt. The whole thing's gonna disintegrate.
Yeah. So yeah, we have that whole timer going on in the background of when it's going to hit the asteroid. They do eventually make their way to like the big lab where what they were testing is located. Um,
This was kind of a weird spot where Andy gave them a gun. I think he gave them both a gun. So
yep,
Tyler and
there's like a little
Tyler and
armory
Rain.
thing.
Yeah, Tyler and Rain both have guns, but they say that they're not allowed to shoot them at the alien because if they do that, the ship's gonna crash.
He was saying to them, because when they first met Rook, they saw that big old hole, that was going through the ship. And that's due to the acid blood of the
Mhm.
alien. And so they're like, if you shoot it, it's going to cause issues. It's going to melt the ship and then cause a problem. So you can't shoot it. You just got to scare it.
That makes sense.
Feel free to keep going. I was just clarifying that.
Oh, yeah. So we got the weird goo that Rook and Andy tell them is for helping and like so that people can become more like the perfect organism. And they show like a video of like a what was it, a rabbit or something like that getting smushed to death, but then that goo helping it become alive again. But then we as the audience see later in the film that it had almost grown out of that cage with the black goo because it's kind of almost like venom, right? But we see on the video recording from back then that it's not refined enough. The process isn't good. Um, it helps it for a little bit, but then it takes over and ruins it. But of course, Andy doesn't share that information, and neither does Rook. So our people friends don't understand that it's not all that it's cracked up to be. But we start to escape. We go down a different hallway. Um,
They get to that hallway where it's like a big alien infestation, and Tyler hears some like moaning noises, and so they go to check it out, and it's Kay. And so he
yep.
wants to tear her down from the wall so they can take her back. But this is where, unfortunately, Tyler meets his end.
Yep, so he gets a hook right through the chest. It reminded me a little bit of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the way he was like essentially on a meat hook, except it was from the alien.
Well, it's kind of one of their signature shots for the alien throughout the series because it's like it stabs you through the back, picks you up, and then puts you right in front of it so that its tongue can smack you right in the forehead.
Gross. I thought this would have been a nice, easy way for like him to drop his gun or something. That way they had another one, but that doesn't happen. I don't know whatever happens to his gun. I guess he just brings it with him because we don't ever see him again. So then we make our way onto an elevator. Andy is actually like incapacitated in the hallway. He must have got hit and fell in like just the right way that his circuits are kind of short-circuiting a bit. So we've got Rain and Kay on the elevator trying to get back up to where the ship is. And Rain sees on the monitor that Andy's still having issues and she still feels for him. So she sends Kay on her way and says just to basically get in one of those cryo chambers and that it will autopilot her back to their home planet. So Rain goes back to find Andy and they come to an understanding of if you let me take out your special chip that's telling you what to do the objective, then I'll help you because otherwise you're just going to be stuck here forever. Um, so they come to that agreement, so he's back to his regular self. That also means that he doesn't have any special door access anymore, so that's kind of unfortunate. But at least now he can go back to trying to protect Rain primarily, right? They get stuck at the end of a hallway with several aliens coming after them, and Rook has put the place on lockdown, essentially not letting them leave. I think because he knows that Kay has the special substance and that's all he really cares about, so screw anybody else. Kind of a situation of you gave me what I wanted, I don't have to give you what you wanted, so suck it. Um, but this was when she part of Andy's programming was a whole bunch of dad jokes because Rain's dad programmed him, right? And dads like dad jokes and they're really corny. But excuse me. One of them was about gravity and because Rain's scared, she asked him to tell her some of those jokes to kind of make her feel better because she thinks she's about to die. But she hears that one about the gravity and it reminds her to turn off the gravity in the ship. So we know when they first got on this space station that the gravity was turned off, but every once in a while it would like trigger back on and stuff. And so it makes it click for her of like, well, why don't I just turn off the gravity and then I can shoot them all and the acid won't just sink through the bottom of the ship. So they do that, and this is that one big shootout moment that Jeremy was talking about. Probably the most action we see the whole film, at least in like one scene, right?
Hmm. I mean,
Uh,
there's an action sequence towards the end as well, but not a shootout.
right.
But yeah, she's
So,
shooting them, and there's goop all over the air. Like it looks like someone threw up in space, and she's trying to avoid touching it. Um, there's a point where it looks like she's gonna get hit with it, so she uses the gun. She fires a couple of rounds. That way, it'll push her away from it. But ultimately, her and Andy do get away from this process.
yep. So then they're climbing through the elevator shaft, not using the actual elevator. They're just going through the shaft because there's no gravity, so they can kind of Willy Wonka their way up through. If only they had some of that fizzy lifting drink. Um, But like I said, the gravity has a weird like restart thing every once in a while. So, but this point, this is when it has to restart again. So Annie's holding on to the ladder, but Rain is not. She doesn't get a hold of it in time. But something catches her, Jeremy, so she doesn't just fall to her death.
The alien does with a tail, but she doesn't get stabbed.
Yeah, I thought that was so weird. If it was gonna catch her, why wouldn't it just stab her?
It was playing with its food.
Is that what the perfect organism would do?
Maybe. I'm not perfect. I couldn't tell you.
Uh, but it seems like she's kind of stuck and that's it. But what we end up seeing is that Andy is holding, because the gravity came back on, right? So the elevator started to come back down. So Andy's holding it up. I guess he must be like insanely strong to be able to hold that whole elevator up there. That thing looked giant.
From what I remember, the artificial people, they're pretty strong.
Yeah. Um, her gun gets jostled loose from where it was stuck when the gravity turned back on. And he
Andy
does,
grabbed it.
yeah, he does kind of some weird things. So he's able to shoot out the alien and the face hugger that's coming for her. But then there's more aliens climbing up the elevator shaft. So he lets go of the elevator so that it falls and crashes the aliens. But Rain is hugged up close enough to the ladder that she winds up being okay. Um,
Okay.
and I thought that the gravity would have turned back off because I thought it was just like a little reboot type thing, but I don't think it turns back off, does it?
I don't think so. Because they like climb their way, I think, to their ship, don't they?
Yeah, and I guess the acid doesn't get down to the bottom to ruin the space station either. Like they
Supposedly
showed it
not.
eating some of the bars, but it never panned out for that to like ruin anything.
I don't know. What we do know is that Kay is, already back to the ship, and Kay is not doing so hot. And so she takes that thing that Rain gave her, and she stabs herself in the neck so that she can be back to business. So she makes her way up to the hangar and then into the ship, and she's waiting for our other two, which at this point, the other two eventually do get there, right? They get to the ship. They think everything is going to be fine and dandy, and they take off. They have um, their cryo cryo chambers. They have those on their ship, and I think Rain is getting ready to put Kay in there, and basically says like, "You'll be all right, don't worry." So she puts Kay in there, shuts it, and she's all good to go. And when Rain is going to play with another one, um, Kay's has an alarm go off, an alert. Something's wrong inside there, medical. And so when Rain opens it back up, yeah, Kay's not doing so hot. Kay looks like she's gonna be having, like an alien maybe pop out of her chest or something because, she's been in the goop from before.
Well,
But
she also went from like freshly pregnant, super skinny to now she's 9 months pregnant, got a big old belly.
right, because like Sarah was mentioning before, we saw off camera from the characters is that this medicine, even though it makes you go back to being perfect, it has kind of this weird effect where like an alien process begins. And so when she was pregnant, her baby, you know, came out of she gave birth to the baby and it was in like a cocoon thing, kind of like the aliens have. And eventually it spawns out of that thing. And did Kay die from that process? Do you remember?
Not from this process, because she still has the alien stuff in her, I think, keeping her alive. But her like baby creature kills her later.
Gotcha. So the the baby grows very fast and becomes like a huge alien human mix. I thought this was kind of cool. I did hear some people in the theater laugh when they first showed this creature. Um, but yeah, it's a huge creature. I'd probably say a good 7, 8 feet tall, bare minimum. And it goes to attack our two ladies. Kind of, where was Andy in the process of this?
So it was going to attack Kay. Rain
Oh
ran away
yeah, it like
with. Yep.
swiped at Andy and smacked him. And so he
I think it slit his throat.
went back into one of those like freak out um glitchy type modes where he doesn't know what to do. Um, Rain decides to fight back against this creature.
Yeah, she's trying to find like a cryo freezing backpack, if you will, to try to freeze it so that she can get it off the ship. It's kind of a bit of a cat and mouse chase through the cargo area and stuff. At one point, she finds it over by Kay, except it's too late for Kay. It's feeding on her, all right? Um, she is able to freeze it at one point, but not enough to kill it. She figures out, kind of like the original movie, a way to get rid of the cargo hold. So then that's how she winds up getting rid of it. There's a lot of before she gets rid of it in the cargo hold, the cryo freezing can that she had kind of explodes. So the whole ship is getting extremely cold. So she's able to slip into one of those suits, kind of reminiscent of the original, right? Where Sigourney Weaver got in one of those suits. But so she's in the suit, she's hooked up on a line, and she's able to get the cargo hold emptied out. There's some back and forth of trying to get the creature off the ship, and eventually she's able to, kind of just in the nick of time. So the creature's gone. She gets back on the ship, and somehow the ship knew that stuff was going down, so it had turned off the autopilot when the cryo
Rook
chamber was not doing good. But
Rook
all of a
was
sudden,
like
now that the creature's
part of it.
gone, the autopilot went back on. And I don't know why it thought that the danger was gone. Like, how would the ship know that?
I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that Rook was kind of involved because he was plugged into the system.
They had shut down Rook's access before any of that.
Oh, then I don't know.
Because as soon as Rain got on the ship, she got rid of Rook's access.
Hmm. Well, I mean, after that human alien perfect organism thing was sent off, that's pretty much the end of the movie. I don't remember. I don't remember exactly how the movie closed out. Do you
So she
remember?
put she put Andy in one of those chambers saying, I promise I'll fix you,
Oh, yeah.
because of his throat being slit or whatever it was, because he was like bleeding the white milk blood. Um, so she's not able to fix him right now, but they're on the course to Yavaro, which is the planet where you can see the sun. She's getting into her own chamber, and then we just hear like her mission log of, we're on our way to Yavaro. Who knows if we'll make it, but I'm ready to face what comes next, leaving it really open-ended for if they want to do another one or not.
Yeah. Which is interesting. I mean, like I said, I really like this lead actress and Andy. So if they do make more movies with them being the focus, I think that'd be really cool. I don't really know how much they could do. I mean, it's kind of like the Saw movies in a way where they're in between a couple movies and I guess they really just have to explore that time frame right now, even though it's much later on in the movie making process. So I guess we'll just see. I doubt that they'll, end up meeting up with Sigourney Weaver's character at any point.
Yeah, I think from what I saw, or what I read, I should say, they're about 20 years after the first movie, but 37 years before the second movie. So that's why they're kind of in this weird in between.
Hmm.
Let's say it takes her the 9 years to get to Yavaro. So now they'd be, was that
28.
28 years before the second movie? So it still is a long time before the second movie.
Yeah. Oh, and one thing we probably could have mentioned in the non-spoiler section, I think this movie is going to make a lot of money. Our theater was sold out. Like it was probably one of the biggest, like the only other time this year that I've seen a crowd that big was for Deadpool. And Deadpool made over $1 billion. So I think this movie is going to do great.
Can I just say, I thought it was awesome how respectful the audience was. It was a lot of people who actually cared about the film. and stuff. It was really cool to have everybody like actually paying attention and not just being on their phones and stuff like that. Like I think that shows testament to people were not bored.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. Maybe you and I will watch some of the other ones together since you haven't seen them if you have any interest. But there's also a game that I haven't played all the way through. I think I played a little bit and then got sidetracked, but there's a game that has really, really good reviews. Forget what it's called, but it was on PlayStation 4.
Alien Isolation,
Yeah,
I think is what I saw.
yep, that's the one. So maybe we'll check that out. But all right, if you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Drop us a like if you liked the video and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on Alien Romulus. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.